Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, my people, and welcome back to another Thursday vlog. Oh my gosh. Thank you for tuning in again to this week's vlog. This week I wanted to do something because I feel like I owe a lot of people this video. I wanted this week to be a video for all of my fellow groupers because I have convinced so many people that I know to buy a whoop. My mum included. So mum, if you're watching this video is also for you. And to be honest, I kind of just want to make this video for anybody who's got a whoop and just wants to get the best out of it. They just want to optimize themselves. Because I know not everybody works out, so not everybody's going to use it for the same reasons that I use it. But it is a really good tool. And I'm not going to make the kind of video where I break down all the science of whoop because I think there's so many data scientists out there that do it way better than I do. And actually, come to think of it, now that you've got a whoop, first off, you're going to have to listen to these 3 podcasts. These are the 3 podcasts that helped me the most. I'm going to put them on the screen now, somewhere here. And I will also leave a link in the description for those 3 podcasts as well, because those help you understand probably the 3 most important parameters that Whoop has to offer. That's your heart rate variability, HRV, strain, and recovery. And if you're new to Whoop, you've probably seen all these parameters and don't have a clue what they mean. I mean, some of them are kind of self-explanatory, like you can understand the traffic light system of recovery when there's a red recovery, a green recovery, and a yellow recovery. That's pretty self-explanatory. But understanding HRV takes a little bit more nuance, but I think those scientists will do a much better job of explaining them to you rather than me sitting here trying to butcher it. But once you understand those topics, then you can get into how to use your Whoop the best way possible. So then what is it that I actually want to talk about? Well, I kind of want to explain Whoop in a way that I find it easy to use and the things that I look at the most on a day-to-day basis. Yes, I use it a lot for training and gym stuff, but all the other stuff is really helpful. So this is the one-stop shop for all of my friends, so you don't have to ask me individually how to use your Whoop. Okay, so first things first, we break down the obvious. Number 1, the Whoop band, I wear it 24/7, 365. When I'm in the shower, I only take it off when I'm showering and then I put it back on straight afterwards. This is because the longer that you have it on, the more time it calibrates and it understands you and it understands everything about you and can tailor the data towards you. That's the first. Second is the data collection itself. Now, when you first get the Whoop, it has no data on you. And I feel like for the first 4 weeks, it's not really that accurate. You need to give it some time to get used to you and your daily patterns, and then it starts to spit out the data and then you can adjust to it. Now, I had an Apple Watch at the same time I had my Whoop, and so I spent a lot of time looking at the data on my Apple Watch to see if it was in line with my Whoop. But I would say that it truly starts getting accurate after about 14 days of using it. That's when I started to realize that, okay, this thing actually gets me. Now, in terms of the data that I actually use, that is when you open up the Whoop app, you see the 4 headings at the top. That is overview, sleep, recovery, and strain. Now, on that main overview page, when you scroll down just a little bit, you can see health monitors. Now, health monitors is really useful for me, and this is the one indicator I know to figure out when I'm actually sick. Now, the more data your Whoop has on you, it can actually start to tell you when you're sick, when you have a cold, or when you might be fighting something under the surface. And the Strain podcast does a really good job of explaining what is going on there and how they're actually doing that. When you look at your Whoop daily, when you log into the app daily, you can see this thing starts to flash amber sometimes if one of your health analytics is out of whack or out of line from your baseline. When you see that, you might see that your heart rate is either elevated, or maybe your breathing is a little bit elevated, or your temperature might be higher than normal. This is the greatest indicator for me to know when I'm sick. So sometimes, you know, when you have a cold and you wake up like you've got a sore throat, for me, knowing whether or not that sore throat is actually going to turn into a cold is actually dependent on my Whoop data. I don't really leave it to chance anymore. So when I realize that I'm going to be a little bit sick, I decide to lay off that day and chill out just a little bit more. Big thing for me though, I also noticed that sometimes my health parameters might be out of whack if I didn't get enough sleep that day, or I had a particular day where I indulged in carbohydrates, or maybe even alcohol if you're a drinker. Which is actually what brings me on to the next topic, which is recovery. Now, the recovery feature on Whoop is probably the reason why a lot of people have got it, because it kind of gives you that qualitative value of what your performance is actually like. The Whoop officials and all the smart people at Whoop say that majority of people on average will have a yellow recovery, but it's about the action that you take in order to improve that recovery. Now, what I noticed with the Whoop is that your recovery score is based on your sleep and your sleep performance. So every night that you sleep, you get a sleep efficiency rating, and you also get a sleep performance rating, which tells you how well you slept based on the sleep debt that you've acquired within that day. And at the same time, when you're sleeping, it will take note of your HRV and your resting heart rate. Those three factors, as well as your breathing rate, will tell Whoop how good and how recovered you are for the next day. And how I use this for optimization is pretty obvious. When I'm in a green recovery, I'm gonna go ham. When I'm in an amber recovery, I'll take the day a little bit slower. And when I'm in a red recovery, I will focus on a lot more of the recovery activities. And this is something that Whoop is really good at giving advice on. Because there's so many different things that you can do for recovery in order to improve your score from a red to an amber or a green the following day, but you can only improve it after 24 hours. So for example, on a red day, I might focus more on hydration that day, especially if I've drunk the night before. So with alcohol, because alcohol causes dehydration, and so therefore I want to kind of drink in order to boost my hydration, but also boost my recovery for the following day. And another thing you want to do for recovery is, say for instance, you've worked out for a lot, you might want to either take that day off or focus on things that lower your heart rate the next following day. So in the Whoop podcast, they did a really good explanation of the fact that just because you take a day off doesn't mean that you're recovering, because you might do yard work in that day, or go shopping in that day, or gardening in that day. That's just another form of exercise and another way of stressing your body out without realizing it. And that's where I really like to use the strain factor of the Whoop, because the strain, like I said before, is a logarithmic scale. So it's a really big scale, but it's from 0 to 21, 21 being the maximum strain. And you can see through your day how activities are affecting your strain, because the great thing about the Whoop is that it measures the mundane activities. So for instance, if you wake up particularly late, you'll notice that your strain might be elevated before you've even done any activity. Most likely because you didn't rest well, but also if you're taking a day off and you're walking around, you might see that your walk takes up a lot of strain as opposed to what a normal day of exercise would do, or a normal day at work would do, which is one of the reasons why I like to wear my Whoop band whilst I am at work, so I can see how much stress work is actually causing me. Which is what brings me on to the stress monitor. I'm sorry if this is all over the place, this is just how my mind works, but the stress monitor is another really good tool that I use on the Whoop app. Basically, the stress monitor will tell you how much stress you have been in through the day and how long you've spent periods in high stress, low stress, or the medium range stress. It's really nice to be able to just quantify this, because you can figure out what activities are particularly stressing you, try to avoid them, or try and take counteractive measures in the day. And then put aside the stress, the recovery, the strain. The big thing that a lot of people have got it for, or a lot of my friends have got it for, is for their sleep performance. Now, sleep performance, I particularly love talking about. Mainly because I've not really had anything that really gives me that detailed breakdown of my sleep, but every night that you sleep, somehow will magically detect exactly what time you slept and what time you woke up, and every morning it will give you a breakdown of what your sleep is, whether it's deep wave sleep, steady wave sleep, REM, or a very light sleep. Not only that, but it also manages to measure your naps as well. What's great about the Whoop is that it gives you the actionable feedback that you need to take in order to improve your sleep, and also what the quality of your sleep was, and also what that means for you. Some of the biggest takeaways that I took from the sleep podcast, this one, that if you want a good circadian rhythm, you have to start your day early, and also start with natural sunlight if possible. Avoid bright lights before bedtime. Also, what I found that gives me a really good green recovery in the morning, if I've drunk all my water for the day, if I've avoided eating within 3 hours of sleeping, those tend to mean that I get a really good green recovery. And as I said before, my recovery the day after really does depend on the quality of sleep. But the super smart individuals at Whoop have said that if you sleep, and you sleep 100%, it doesn't necessarily mean that your recovery is going to be in the green the following day. And that's where things like hydration, eating early the night before, and other mitigating circumstances come into effect. And that brings me on to another thing that I really love about the Whoop, is the journal. Now, this is probably my favorite feature on the Whoop by far, because having a journal on the app makes it so much easier to track some of my habits, and you can custom make this journal to whatever you like. When you go on the app, if you go to the bottom left corner, there's a thing called plan, and where plan is, you can either customize your plan, or you can adjust your plan. You can have a look at how you're hitting your targets for that particular week, and it gives you an insight and an overview all related to your plan. What's nice about the insight is the more that you log into your journal, the more that the recovery impact analysis can tell you how those things are benefiting your overall recovery. So for instance, you can see mine here, my sleep performance really has an impact on my recovery. Having a device in bed before I sleep actually impacts my recovery quite well. Consistent bedtime. And then you can see that I've added some new things here. So clean eating and hydration are new. So because it's accumulating data, it will tell me later on whether that has a positive or a negative effect overall on my recovery. Obviously strain has quite a negative effect. Then you can see the behaviors, and the thing I love about the behaviors is the behaviors is really niche. Like, you can go into serious detail because it goes all the behaviors, but you can go into your circadian rhythm, which is like your daily routine, your lifestyle choices, your medications, and how that's affecting you, your mental health as well, nutrition, recover, sleep, status, supplements, etc., etc. The list goes on, and I find these super useful to use. And at the end of each week, you kind of get the status report to see where your goals were, how well you did, and you can kind of reflect on how you can do a little bit better next week, which is super helpful. Another thing I really like to use on the Whoop app is the resources are immense. There are so many resources. When I first got it, I was overwhelmed by how much stuff there is that you can read into. If you look on the main page, there's a little text box and you can actually talk to an AI robot and you can ask it questions about how to improve your recovery, sleep, all that sort of stuff. It gives you a lot of useful scientific information that you can use and readily apply to the rest of your life. I realized that the big one that we haven't talked about yet is HRV. Now, HRV, explained in really simple terms, is the pace of your heart. But not only that, it's a measurement of how your nervous system affects your heart. So from what I understand from this podcast, HRV is essentially the time in between heartbeats, okay? So that value that you get every morning is the time in between heartbeats. So I could have 60 beats per minute and you could have 60 beats per minute, but that 60 beats per minute isn't necessarily one beat every second, because my heart could beat every second, your heart could beat every 1.4 seconds. So the 60 beats per second that you see sometimes as a value when you go to the doctors or when you see it on other parameters is usually just an average. And what HRV does is that it actually measures the space in between those heartbeats in order to give you some sort of feedback as to how your nervous system is affecting your heart. Because when you go into stress, your sympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive and then you get lots of rapid little beats. Caffeine has that effect, high training has that effect, and lack of rest also has that effect. So then you'll have a very low HRV value. But when you're well rested or after you've eaten, your HRV might actually start to increase. And because of that, it might mean that you're more able to perform. And Whoop have discussed how your HRV is linked to your recovery. It is always unique to you. So your baseline is your baseline. And what's important is to see how your HRV is affected on a day-to-day basis. So if it seems to be skewing downwards, or if it seems to be skewing upwards, or how it relates to your resting heart rate, or how it relates to your recovery. And the more you start to see those correlations together, the more you can kind of piece together how you're doing and find ways in which to tweak it, because you now have the data. Now, I have been talking for a hell of a long time about all these different Whoop functions, and I'm sure I probably left some stuff out. If I did, let me know in the comments if there is something else that you'd like me to talk about, or if you want me to delve a little bit deeper into the science. If it did help, leave a like, leave a comment, share it with somebody who just got a Whoop. Let me know what they think, let me know what you think. Also, if you want me to just talk to you, just message me. But this video was supposed to be so you don't have to message me. I also have something super exciting to share. Not this week, but next week. So maybe stay tuned for the week after next week's vlog. If you follow me, that will be a super exciting vlog for me. And hopefully I'll be able to share so many cool things with you. But otherwise, I appreciate you for watching as always. Take care and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.